Do a beach episode, do a masquerade ball, do a murder mystery dinner. No, if you want to have fun in your D&D campaign, tell you what you should be doing. Jousting. The fun medieval equivalent of a masquerade ball. You can come in, beat people up, do a bit of political intrigue, get poisoned, pray for guidance, woo maidens, fall for other knights. You can do whatever you want, and all of it with a healthy topping of armor and swords and monsters. Hello adventurers, welcome back to the Red Quills. My name is Ryan, and today we are continuing on with the really quick maps series, and I'm going to design a tourney, a jousting event in medieval style. Now there's going to be a few twists in this one, so this episode is not just to give you ideas for when you run your own, but to pitch to you the fact that you should really have a tourney in your own D&D worlds. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with an A4 sheet of paper and a variety of thicknesses of black pen and a red pen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to really quickly sketch out a map of a tourney for you to run in a D&D session. Now, the first thing I wanted to do when I designed this particular map is take a good long look at the list of events that I wanted to run before I even really stuck anything down on the map itself. And so what I wanted was a series of events and interactions and encounters that would require different skills from the players at different times, so that you could not only showcase individual skills within the party, but you could also pit them against different kinds of challenges so that they wouldn't really ever know what to expect next. So what we have in the end is 10 events that take place as a part of the tourney and in different parts of the tourney ground and requiring different specializations. So the first is going to be the opening event, and what I wanted to design here was this kind of triathlon thing. And in order to really kind of give some background to what is going to be a little bit of a bizarre opening event, I want to talk more about this specific world that I'm building it in. So we're just starting this latest series of the Red Quills, and I'm changing things up a little bit. What I'm doing for the series and seasons that I've got going on is what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out with things in 8-week blocks, which is about 2 months. And over the course of those 8 weeks, all of the really quick maps and the Game Master maps, the other main series that I do, all of those maps within the videos will be a part of the same world. So at the end of the 8 weeks, those who subscribe to my Patreon, if you're members, you can get a huge downloadable as a part of the setting that you can use as a basis for some of your own world building concepts. And it's basically just a way for me to really kind of focus in on different genres, different challenges, different kinds of encounters. And in this particular case, Andermonde, which is the map that I did only a few days ago in biro and pencil on printer paper, was this sort of steampunk world where I wanted to explore this theme of magic versus technology. And so what that means is that the old world, where we have this sort of steampunk society, this late Renaissance, pre-industrial revolution society, is what I'm kind of going for here, is where we have the knights and the tournament, which puts us in a little bit of a bind, because obviously tourneys are something that belong in a medieval setting, and they are a way of that knights use to kind of pit themselves against challenges and gain favors and gain some political standing and some clout as a warrior. And so how do I fit that into a steampunk setting? Well, I'll tell you. The first is by altering the challenges. The idea that I'm going with here is that the Chevalier de la Monde, which is the Knights of the World in Andermonde, they're this knightly order who work as unaffiliated peacekeepers on the old world in the continent there, and they're known to be some of the best fighters in the world. They're hosted out of Claireville, the city, and what they do every year is they host this tourney, and anyone who wants to try to join the knights must take part in the tourney, and they will be evaluated by their brethren. But if they don't succeed and they do survive, then they're always welcome to try again next year. It's this very elite, highly skilled fraternity of knights. And now, because the Claireville Tourney, hosted by the Chevalier de la Monde, the Knights of the World, is in a steampunk setting, which means that the knights are not going to be bound by medieval weapon and armor anymore. We're going to have to update that. Depending on your steampunk setting, whether or not gunpowder exists is entirely up to you. I have it, but it's not very accurate. And we're going to use a lot of pressure, hydraulics, and spring-loaded weaponry instead. It means that things like crossbows are going to be much more reliable than a gun would be, but it does mean that technological innovation is starting to happen. And because of that kind of changing face of what it means to be a knight, I wanted this tourney to reflect that. The different challenges reflect this sort of balance between a traditional martial order and the requirements to move and change with the times, being a peacekeeper in the modern age, as opposed to being a knight of the round table in King Arthur's day. And so while some of the challenges within the tourney are standard challenges, we have the jousting, which is on horseback or on automaton, depending on your choice, but it's a random bout against any other competitor and a skill check. You could have dueling, in which you challenge another initiate on one-on-one with a weapon of their choice. You could do what's called an arena presentation, which is where you go into the arena and you volunteer to fight a particular beast. The more difficult the beast, or however many reinforcements you have, determines a given score. And in addition to those kind of martial challenges, you do still have the more social, traditional tasks that a knight would have, which is gaining favors. And while we associate that often with, princesses or maidens who want to marry said knight, gaining favors in this particular case is much more about political clout and being able to sway sponsors and patrons to your side. In addition, you need to be able to rouse the crowd behind you. So a large portion of your score is not only determined by your ability to get sponsorships and patronage, but also by the amount of clout and support you can get from the spectators who are unaffiliated and or don't have the monetary support. They are an unaffiliated knightly group, and their reputation is extremely important to them. So they want to have knights who can represent them and be popular amongst the masses. They will, of course, finish with an oath swearing, which is a trial of ordeal, which is an exhaustion trial, which shows their dedication to the knightly virtues. They choose a specific one, and then at the end they'll have the initiation itself, which is one last battle royale between the initiates to determine their ranking, their score. But while most of those challenges are, with only a couple of tweaks, still fairly medieval, I wanted the opening event to be something that really drove home the fact that this is not a medieval setting and that technology has advanced. And so what I'm going to create is a triathlon event with some altered requirements. Normally, of course, a knight's skill on horseback or with armor or with swords or in hand-to-hand combat, those are the things that we're looking for. But in a steampunk world where people travel by air, or they fight automatons, or they're required to assemble complex weaponry, different skills are needed. And so the opening event begins with flight, a glide down from an airship above the tourney fields. They are provided either with a parachute or a glider. It's up their choice which one. And whoever makes it to the ground first gets the highest score. Of course, if you mistime that and injure yourself, you're taken out of the running really early on. It is a race, but it's also about determining your proficiency with alternative forms of movement. Once you're on the ground, each of them is given 2 pursuers, automatons who are keyed to them, which chase them around a track in a battle mobile combat challenge. It's either a chase if a given competitor wants to try to avoid them, or it's open combat if they want to try to take it down as quickly as possible. This is about determining what their strengths are, whether they're fast or strong, whether they're agile or clever. The method that a competitor chooses to dissuade pursuit is something that they're looking for here. Which brings us to the third and final part of the challenge. They parachute down into the main arena. They run around the track to get to the third challenge, avoiding their pursuers or confronting them. And finally, they are given a long table of disassembled weaponry. They have to assemble a weapon with which they are proficient and hit a target from a certain distance. This determines not only their proficiency with weapons and their hand-eye coordination, but also their inventiveness and their ability to create new things on the fly. But on the other hand, this is also a challenge that can be won in multiple different ways. Either someone who's very proficient and clever with mechanical items can create something that will wow the judges and hit extremely accurately over a distance. But if someone is really good at throwing knives, they can just pick up the nearest sharp piece of metal and throw it as hard as they can. 10 events, 10 challenges, 10 different specialties that any member of a party or any initiate to the Chevalier de la Monde will be required to overcome. But a tourney like this, like a masquerade ball or a mystery dinner, needs a plot hook, a prerequisite, a reason that the players are interested in doing this. So when you're arranging a tourney in your world, the question arises, how are you going to get them interested in doing it? The games themselves are fun, but what puts this above mere arena combat? And that is precisely why this kind of event is so superior to a once and done man versus beast combat. A group of adventurers hearing about the tourney of the Chevalier de la Monde may see that as an unnecessary responsibility, tying them down to one place and being required to take orders. But on the other hand, this is a publicly accessible event, and all sorts of things happen within these tourney grounds to make sure that the candidates that the sponsors want to be chosen are indeed chosen. So if the players, a group of up-and-coming adventurers who want to make a name for themselves, enter into the tourney in order to protect a specific candidate and find out which of the patrons is poisoning their competitors, then this is an excellent opportunity to involve them in some intrigue of that nature. The players will need to enter the tournament, prove themselves in the opening games, joust and duel and fight in the arenas, make small talk with the populace, and have one-on-one meetings with each of the patrons to determine who is influencing the games. They need to be coordinating with the Chevalier themselves, their chaplain who runs the local chapel, and of course the medics in the medical tent, all of which will give them insights into the kind of poison being used, what the intention is of the person who is altering the rules of the games, and whether or not the motives of the Chevalier themselves are as clear-cut as it may seem. So if you want to prove yourself on the field, if you want to see your players assemble weaponry, jump from an airship, fight people in one-on-one duels, take down beasts for the cheering crowds, and sniff out the intrigue of a patron who's been poisoning his competitors, then I would absolutely suggest the medieval version of a masquerade ball with clashing swords, the roar of the crowds. Take your players to a tourney soon and challenge them in a new and exciting way. Now, if you like this idea, let me know in the comments below. Of course, this map and the notes that accompany it will be available for free on my Patreon. If you want to go and check that out, the link is in the description below, as are the materials that I used for this video. As always, I look forward to hearing what you think of this map, how you've run tourneys in the past, or what kind of challenges that you've had. This is obviously a fairly small self-contained one. It's only got 10 challenges, but something that's much larger or even magically fueled could have challenges that are really, really interesting. Now, I'm going to be continuing with exploring Andermonde in the videos that come up over the next few weeks, and the next really quick map will, I think, be a very interesting one in that conflict between technology and magic, between the old world and the new. So keep your eyes peeled for the next episode of Really Quick Maps, but until then, happy mapping, and I'll see you then. This social encounter for them needs its own plot line. And so here is the suggestion that I have for the